everybody, batten down the hatches because Mercury is about to go retrograde again. So what does that mean? Which signs it in? Find out in this week's episode of the Mainly Moonology podcast. Hey everybody, I hope this finds you really well. So one of the great things about listening to this podcast, I hope, is that you end up being very informed about what is going on in the skies. And guess what? I actually do too. I record these weeks in advance sometimes not that far in advance, but often quite a way in advance. And what happens is that every Monday night, as I sit in the car waiting to collect my son Louis from this thing he does on Monday nights, I listen to the podcast. And it's brilliant because it brings me up to date with everything that's happening in the skies. Because being an astrologer who writes in the media, I'm often writing about, it's now March, I could be writing the April or May stars for Red Magazine or, whatever, Take 5, whatever. So this is the aim of the podcast, is to really help you stay on track with what's going on in the skies with an emphasis on manifesting, because manifesting really is my current obsession and fascination. So this week, what we've got is we've got the end of the waning cycle. So I'll go into that in a minute. We have Mercury about to go retrograde, and plus we have Venus, the planet of love and abundance, quite busy. So let's go through those three things. Let's start off with first the fact that we are now in the waning cycle of the moon. So as you will know by now, if you're a regular listener, the waning cycle is between the full moon and the new moon. It's about 2 weeks long. The waxing cycle is between the new moon and the full moon. So we are currently moving from the full moon back to the new moon. The waning cycle is a time to just breathe out. So talking to my future Yasmin, as you listen to this, sitting in the car waiting for Louis, take a deep breath in through your nose, hold, and breathe out. Hold, and just come back to the present. So the waning cycle is about letting go, releasing, moving on, and moving through. It's not the time to be starting new projects, okay, if you can possibly help it. What you want to do is you want to do new projects in the waxing cycle, which is just after the new moon and through to the full moon. So what to do this week to make the most of the energies? Well, probably the first thing is to have a think about what in your life has really served its purpose, okay? What are you really well and truly done with? What do you need to release or let go or move through? Reason being, it's really important to do it because guess what? Next week we will have the new moon, and it's not just any new moon, it's actually going to be a new moon eclipse, and it's not just going to be a new moon eclipse, it's going to be a new moon eclipse in the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, which is just so filled with meaning and symbolism and ways to be interpreted and so on. And I will talk about that next week. And if you're in my Mainly Moonology membership, I will be sending you out something special for the eclipse, just by the way. And if you're not in my Mainly Moonology membership, sign up. It's mainlymoonologymembership.com. We'll get you there. It's cheap as chips, and we really go a bit deeper on everything that we can do in the podcast. So we're in the waning cycle of the moon. We're at the time where we want to let go. And remember that whatever you can release now that's negative in your life will actually boost your manifesting. Why is that so? Because really with manifesting, as much as we sit down and we make our lists at the new moon, which is really important to do, brings clarity. Remember that even if you forget to make your lists 1 month, just say, even if you don't have time or you don't make it to one of my events where I do them on Facebook, new moon events every month. Even if you don't do your list, guess what? You are still manifesting 24/7. So the whole thing with the lists, with making your wishes, sending out intentions, making commitments, the whole thing with that is actually to help you get clear on what you actually want to create, because then you will start to create it. But this period now, the dark moon, before the new moon. We're not quite to the dark moon phase, but the waning cycle, which leads to the dark moon before the new moon, is so powerful because it actually allows you to get rid of any negativity, because actually we're all manifesting 24/7. It is the law of attraction. So what we put out is what we get back. So this cycle, now the waning cycle that we're in this week, is to release and let go of negativity so that we're not going to be attracting more negativity, especially when it comes to the new moon, which is when a new cycle will begin. That's the waning cycle of the moon ahead of the coming eclipse. And I hope I've explained to you why it's really important to let go of as much negativity as you can so you don't attract more negativity, because we're about to move into a major manifesting time with a new moon eclipse coming up. But what I also wanted to pay attention to this week is the fact that we are about to go into another Mercury retrograde. So for those of you who are new to all of this, by the way, it is the Mainly Moonology podcast, because we talk about mainly moonology, but that leaves us a bit of leeway to do things like talk about the fact that Mercury is going retrograde. So Mercury is the planet of communications, okay? It's the planet in your chart. It talks about what kind of listener you are, what kind of talker you are, how you communicate, the way you think, and really it's all to do with anything from writing a novel to writing an email to making a phone call to sending a WhatsApp message, anything that's to do with thinking or listening or just using your mind. It's about your intellectual process, how you take in information, how you put it out there, and so on. It's also the transport planet. Mercury is a transport planet, and it's also to do with communication, things like computers. So when Mercury starts to go backwards, it's really a time to rethink, revisit, revise, because the planet appears to be going backwards from our vantage point here on Earth. And so symbolically, it's a time to really have a second go at whatever you need to have a second go at. It's a chance to have a redo if you mess something up. You know, it's the kind of time where if you said something to someone that you really regret, it's a really good time to say, look, I'm really sorry. I'd really like to take my words back. I know it's really hard, but, you know, would you give me a second chance? Rethink, revise, redo, revisit, revamp, anything. Okay, so that is what Mercury retrograde is in general. But then what we also have is the fact that Mercury retrograde this time around is taking place in the sign of Aries. So that, again, has its own sort of influence. And let me just tell you where it's going to be for you, depending on your rising sign. And if you can hear me shuffling around with the book, if you're listening to the podcast rather than watching this on YouTube, this is my Mercury retrograde book. This is actually the hardback. It's now out in paperback as well. And that's what I'm just sort of was referring to that as I began talking about Mercury retrograde. But let me first tell you, based on your rising sign, okay? So if you know your rising sign, listen to that. If you don't know your rising sign, I strongly advise you to find it out, because you'll get a far more accurate reading. You can find it out at moonmessages.com/free chart, moonmessages.com/free chart. You just need to find out your rising sign, come back here and listen to this. All right. So this is how Mercury retrograde in Aries, this is how it's going to affect you. As I said, listen to your rising sign. Here we go. So if you are Aries rising, it's taking place in your first house, which is all about appearances. So you're getting a chance to just change, rethink, revisit, revise, revamp the way the world sees you. If you're Taurus rising, it's in your 12th house. So on the one hand, the negative could be you're going to have some old fears coming back up. On the positive side, it can be a chance to rethink, redo, revise your spiritual practices if you've fallen a bit off the bandwagon. Gemini or Gemini rising, it's in your 11th house. Now, this is a nice one because it means that you can reconnect with old friends. It's also a chance to have another go with an old wish that you made, which maybe didn't come true, or to revisit something that you once wished for. Cancer or Cancer rising, aka Moonchild or Moonchild rising, it's taking place in your 10th house of career and ambitions. a chance to redo, rethink, revise, revisit an old career ambition. Can be a time where there's extra room for mix-ups in your career, so watch out for that. Leo rising, it's taking place in your ninth house of travel, study, and adventure. Very good time to go off on an adventure to somewhere you've been before, or redo something connected to your study, or to revise your life philosophies. Virgo rising, it's in your eighth house, which is sex and money. So you're getting second chances when it comes to sex and money. Libra rising, it's in your seventh house of love. So very much about who do you love? Who did you used to love? Do you need reconciliation? Do you need closure? Mix-ups possible with your partner as well. Be careful. Scorpio rising, it's your sixth house of daily work and health. Chance to rethink, revise, revisit your daily routines. Are they serving your well-being? Can also be a time to have another think about your health routines and your daily life. What are you doing? Are you living your life in a way that serves you? Are your morning routines serving you? Are your evening routines serving you? And so on. Sagittarius rising, it's in your fifth house, which is romance, creativity, and children, your own or someone else's. And again, in here, revamp, revisit, revise, rethink anything to do with romance, creativity, and children. Second chances to do with romance, creativity, and children. Extra confusion to do with romance, creativity, and children. Capricorn rising, it's in your fourth house of home and family. So actually a lovely chance to reconnect with your family if you haven't seen them for some time. Maybe a family member who's been away will come back. But also, again, more room for confusion with home and family. Also a good time to redo your house. Aquarius rising, it's your third house. Now, this is what you call a double whammy. Mercury is the planet of the mind. The third house is the planet of the mind. They're both also to do with communications. Extra chance for complete chaos. So, dot all your I's and cross all your T's. Just be a little bit extra careful when it comes to anything you're communicating. Make sure you're getting your point across, but also a good time to sort of rethink if you've been down a negative spiral. Last one, Pisces, your second house, cash, property, and possessions. There are some second chances coming for you to do with money, but it can also be a confusing time. So just be careful. So that is the overall for where it is for you. But let's talk about what Mercury retrograde in Aries brings in a more general sense. So when Mercury is retrograde in Aries, the best possible upside is that we all get a second chance to be brave, because Mercury retrograde does bring confusion, but it also brings second chances. So, for example, if you chickened out of something, Mercury retrograde in the impulsive first sign of the zodiac is giving you a second chance to be gutsy. So just have a think for a moment. Where would you be happy to have a second chance to be a little bit braver about something? Or maybe it's just in a general sense. You've been through something, you haven't been that brave, and it's like, okay, I'm going to be braver from here on in, especially if it's to do with this part of your life I just mentioned. Aries represents the fearless and innocent infant for whom everything is fresh and new. So try to be less cynical and more aware of the everyday wonders around you under this cycle. By the end of this cycle, once you've become clearer on whatever has been perplexing you, okay, you should finally be able to find the courage to deal with the things you've been procrastinating about, including sharing the truth with someone about what's actually been going on. But choose your words carefully under this cycle, because Mercury, planet of communication and words, Aries, a little bit brash, a little bit rushes into things. So just be a little bit careful. The Aries energy is usually very speedy, but here we have a slowing down, because when Mercury is going backwards, there's definitely a feeling of things not going forwards. Makes sense. It's as though there's a message coming to us from the heavens saying, take it easy. It's not a race. So if you've been like racing ahead, trying to push your head too far, now is the time to kind of go, you know what, it's not a race. I can slow things down a little bit. It's a very good time to learn the benefits of thinking first and speaking later as well. If you need a few lessons in that, that's the kind of thing I need lessons in. So 5 things to do when Mercury is retrograde. I want to give you those. Number 1, look before you leap. When Mercury is going backwards in the sign of Aries, just start to practice a little bit of look before you leap. Don't just jump into things without thinking. Again, someone like me, great advice to me. Some people do take ages to consider things. I don't. I rush in where angels fear to tread, and it's a really good time to just slow down a little bit. Look before you leap. Another one, a bit pertinent to me right now. I've been talking nonstop for about 15 minutes now. Stop talking and start listening. I'm listening. Just listen a little bit more under this cycle, which will last just a few weeks. I'll let you know when it's over. But just think from now on, okay, I'm going to look before I leap. I'm going to talk less and listen more. Another one, refine your chutzpah, if I can use that word. It's a word that means your zhuzh, your fabulousness. Refine your fabulousness. Reconnect with your inner child. Reconnect with that part of you that's brave and that just goes out there and does stuff if you've kind of lost sight of that a little bit. Also, if you feel like maybe you've made some bad decisions, guess what? Mercury going backwards in Aries, it's actually not a bad time to reassess those decisions. Think again. It's never too late to change your mind. As they say, where there's life, there's hope. So if you need to reassess some of your recent decisions, very good time to do it. And also another one that's really good as well for Mercury retrograde in Aries is focus on motivating yourself. You know, it's very easy to slip into the role of coach, you know, to your partner or kids or whoever you think will benefit from your wisdom. But Mercury retrograde in Aries, so if you're watching on the video, I've got a hair in my face. There we go, it's gone. A really good time to focus on motivating yourself. Reinvigorate yourself, let's say, because Aries is a very vigorous sign. Things to watch out for under this cycle. There are some things to watch out for under this Mercury retrograde in Aries cycle as well, though. Don't jump to conclusions under this cycle because Aries, speedy sign, looks before it leaps, or no, it doesn't look before it leaps. Don't jump to conclusions, okay? Some of us are going to feel like, oh, I know that. No, just take it easy, take it slow. The first answer might not be the right answer. In fact, sometimes there's more than one way of being right, so don't get all shouty and stomp up and down if someone disagrees with you under this cycle. Just remember, this cycle is all about gathering information. When Mercury is retrograde, it's not really a time to be going out there and chasing stuff. It's really a time to be sitting back and kind of seeing the lay of the land. Like I said, rethinking, revising, re-editing. What can I do differently next time? And then once we get through this cycle, which will last a few weeks, once we get through this cycle, then it's going to be time to take action, you know? And, you know, really Mercury, anything that comes up when Mercury is retrograde in Aries, golden rule for the next few weeks, anything that comes up can probably be largely resolved by slowing things down. So there we go. So that is Mercury retrograde in Aries. It's a big thing for this week. And if you work with it, Mercury retrograde can actually be a very positive time. Obviously, we all know that Mercury retrograde has quite a bad reputation. People will think, you know, it's like bad things happen under Mercury retrograde. I don't subscribe to that view at all. In fact, that's why I wrote the Mercury retrograde book, which I wrote with Kim Farnell, fellow UK astrologer. I wrote it because I really wanted people to know that Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be a bad time. It actually offers us second chances. And, you know, sometimes we all need a second chance. So there we go. Let's move on to the third and final topic that I wanted to cover in this week's podcast, which is the fact that Venus, the planet of love and abundance, is really the busiest planet this week. We have Mercury going backwards in Aries, and apart from that, we have no new moon, no full moon, and we have Venus, first of all, meeting Neptune, then moving into Aries, so the same part of your chart where Mercury is retrograde, and then Venus making a harmonious angle to Pluto. So let's break that all down, and we will end with a chant to the planet. Venus's goddess, we'll do it to Lakshmi, who's one of the goddesses who works with the Venus energy. So Venus is the planet of love and abundance. So if you want more love in your life or you want more abundance in your life, this is a week to be paying attention. Now, bear in mind what we've already discussed, okay? The moon is waning, so it's a time to sort of take it really easy, work through issues, forgive, forget, all that kind of stuff. It's not charging forwards. Moreover, Mercury is now retrograde again, rethinking, revising, revisiting. So if you're getting the idea, it's kind of a time, not necessarily to withdraw, but at least to kind of be a little bit more retiring on things, a little bit sort of, taking a time to, what's the word? Get perspective, be a little bit contemplative. And then so Venus conjunct Neptune, which is happening on April 3, is a very interesting one because Venus, planet of love and abundance, Neptune, planet of dreams, but also the planet of disappointments. So this is where astrology can be quite interesting because it's really a case of how are you living right now? It is going to be enhanced by this Venus action. So if you are, for example, madly in love and everything's rosy and it's all fabulous, Venus conjunct Neptune could be the most romantic night of your year. If you're with someone and you suspect they're doing the dirty on you, you don't really trust them, for one thing, ask yourself why you're with this person. But for another, it can be a time where there is deception in the air or disappointment in the air. So it really does, it's sort of going to enhance wherever you are in your love life. Same when it comes to money, abundance. Venus conjunct Neptune, if you make your living in a way that inspires people, chances are, or that inspires you, chances are you're going to have a great week financially speaking. But if you're doing something shady with money, then you need to be really careful because this could be a time where your shadiness increases. And then, of course, there's always that price to pay. After we have Venus conjoining Neptune on the 3rd of April, then on the 5th of April, we have Venus moving into the sign of Aries. Now, wherever I mentioned for you before, where Mercury is retrograde, that same part of your life is also going to have the Venus energy, which is about love and beauty and caresses and perfume and chocolates and just everything Venusian. So, in fact, if you ever learn astrology, one of the things you have to learn when you're reading someone's chart is to do what's called synthesis, or to synthesize the chart. And that's when you take in all these different aspects. And it's something I actually find quite easy to do. I don't know if all astrologers find it quite easy. I've always found it easy and I've enjoyed it. You kind of go, okay, so we've got the waning moon and that means that. We've got Mercury retrograde in Aries, that means that. Now we've got Venus in Aries, that means that. So it's about trying to understand. So try and think about, okay, she mentioned that part of my chart, that part of my life. Got to rethink and revisit, but there's a chance for beauty. Try and sort of think of it like that. I don't mean to brag about being good at synthesizing charts. I've just always noticed it's not ever been something I've struggled with. So try and think, okay, I've got these 3 aspects. I've got this part of my life. I've got Mercury retrograde there. I've got the planet of love there. What can I do with all of that? Just try and think about that. And then we actually get Venus making a harmonious aspect to Pluto, which is the sign of passion and power. So that part of your life can get some kind of dynamic, beautiful revolution this week. So, okay, let's try and sum it all up before I end with a chart to Lakshmi. This is a week to slow things down, find the beauty, do some meditation because Neptune's being triggered, and just withdraw a little, reflect, and think about what you've got, what you want, where you've been, where you are, where you want to go. Try and do that this week, and then you'll be getting the best that this week has to offer. And yeah, definitely do the meditations. All right, so now let's end with a chant to the goddess Lakshmi, and I'm going to chant her name 3 times. It's just a way to bring her into your life. She is Venus energy. So if you would like more Venus energy in your life, join me in this chant. Here we go. Om Lakshmi Namaha. Om Lakshmi Namaha. Om Lakshmi Namaha. And I'll just finish by saying something that I'm being quite inspired to say right now is there is healing heart energy around this week. You know, there are second chances, there is heart opening energy, there is inspired energy. So go into this week softly, gently, not racing ahead. Just go easy on yourself and everyone in your life, and you'll be getting the best that the week has to offer. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful week. Lots of love.